What would you choose when faced with an uncertain path? To follow someone else's words? Or to trust your own wisdom? This ancient tale from a past life of the Buddha holds a lesson for all of us about seeing through illusions and walking our own path. Listen closely and perhaps you will find the wisdom you seek. In a distant past, in the great city of Benares, there lived two merchants. Each of them was preparing for a journey that would take them across a vast and treacherous wilderness. One of them, the Bodhisattva, had learned the art of seeing clearly through his years of experience. The other, a young and ambitious merchant, believed that fortune favored those who moved swiftly and unburdened by caution. The Bodhisattva, with a calm demeanor, approached the young merchant with a proposal. Both of them knew they could not travel together. The 1,000 carts they brought would put an undue strain on the road, on resources, and on each other. So he asked, would the young man prefer to go first or to follow behind? The young merchant, confident of his own advantage, eagerly chose to lead the way. The road will be untouched, he thought. My oxen will graze on the best of grass. My men will have fresh herbs for curry, and I shall set my own prices without competition. With that, he yoked his carts and set out, eager to conquer the wilderness. The Bodhisattva watched as the young merchant disappeared into the distance. He knew there was wisdom in allowing others to carve the path. He would journey on a road already paved by the one ahead, a road where the coarse grass had been eaten and a fresh, tender growth awaited. He would drink from wells already dug and would trade without the burden of negotiating new prices. And so he waited patiently, knowing his time would come. Days into his journey, the young merchant reached the edge of a vast wilderness. But this was no ordinary desert. It was a demon wilderness where illusions were as dangerous as the lack of water. Prepared for the journey, the young merchant carried great jars of water, enough to sustain his men and oxen across the 60 leagues of desert. But in the heart of this barren land, a goblin watched. This goblin was no ordinary creature. He thrived on the weakness of travelers, weaving illusions to lure them to despair. Disguising himself as a nobleman, he rode out with his retinue, his clothes soaked as though he had just come from a refreshing rain. Blue lotuses crowned his head, and his men too bore signs of abundance: wet clothes, garlands, and hands filled with water lilies. As the young merchant's caravan approached, the goblin greeted them warmly. He spoke of lakes and endless rains just beyond the horizon. He pointed to the forest ahead, where, he said, pools of fresh water lay waiting for the weary travelers. There is no need to carry these heavy jars any further, he advised. Throw them away and lighten your load. The young merchant, trusting the illusion, ordered his men to break the jars and pour away every drop of water. They moved forward eagerly, their carts lighter, their spirits lifted. But the promised lakes never appeared, and as the sun blazed overhead, thirst began to take its toll. The relentless heat bore down upon them, and the energy that had fueled their haste dissipated quickly. By nightfall, the men and oxen, exhausted and dehydrated, lay scattered across the desert sands. The goblins returned under the cover of darkness, and there, in the silence of the night, they feasted on the unfortunate travelers, leaving only bones behind. The following morning, the sun rose over a grim and desolate scene. The abandoned carts stood as silent witnesses to the fate of those who had traveled too swiftly and too trustingly. The bones of the merchant and his men lay bleached and broken, a stark warning to all who might come after them. The desert was indifferent, vast, and uncaring, swallowing the hopes of those who ventured unprepared. Some weeks later, the Bodhisattva set out on the same path, his 500 carts laden with goods and water. When he reached the edge of the wilderness, he gathered his men and spoke with firmness. Let no one use even a handful of water without my command. This wilderness is deceptive, and danger may take any form. Trust only what you know, not what you see. The men listened intently, for they trusted the wisdom of their leader. They knew the journey ahead would test their resolve, and they were prepared to heed every instruction. As they journeyed into the desert, the goblin once again appeared, his clothes wet, his carriage adorned with lotuses. He spoke of rains and lakes just ahead, urging the Bodhisattva to cast away his water and hasten forward. The goblin's voice was sweet, his demeanor inviting, and the illusion seemed almost real. But the Bodhisattva, seeing clearly, smiled and replied, "We are men of reason. We do not discard what sustains us until we see with our own eyes what lies ahead. With that, he ordered his men to press on, keeping their water close. The goblin, realizing his trick had failed, slunk away into the shadows, waiting for another prey. His deception had been thwarted by the unwavering resolve of the Bodhisattva, whose wisdom was like a shield protecting his people. The Bodhisattva and his caravan journeyed on, and soon they came upon the abandoned carts of the young merchant. The remains of the ill-fated travelers lay scattered, a grim reminder of misplaced trust. The men paused in silence. Taking in the sight of the ruined caravan, the Bodhisattva ordered his men to gather what they could, the goods, the carts, and the lessons of those who had come before. That night, the Bodhisattva's caravan formed a circle, the carts providing shelter, the oxen resting safely within. The men took turns standing guard, watchful for any danger. They cooked their rice, shared their meal, and drank sparingly from their precious water supply. Under the vast desert sky, they rested in peace, untouched by the illusions that had claimed the others. The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night, as if bearing witness to their prudence and strength. The Bodhisattva himself remained awake for much of the night, his mind focused on the journey ahead. He knew that vigilance was the key to survival, and his heart was filled with compassion for his men and the creatures under his care. The oxen, exhausted from the journey, lay quietly within the circle. The men, too, found solace in the safety of their camp, their leader's wisdom, giving them hope that they would cross the wilderness unharmed. By dawn, they set out once more, their journey steady and unwavering. They crossed the wilderness without loss, reaching their destination with goods intact and spirits unbroken. The Bodhisattva traded his wares for twice their value, the merchants in the city recognizing the quality and care that had gone into preserving them. He returned home with his men and oxen healthy, his wisdom proven, and his heart filled with gratitude for the lessons learned and the challenges overcome. The story of the two merchants spread far and wide. The young merchant's fate became a tale of warning, a reminder of the dangers of haste and misplaced trust. Meanwhile, the Bodhisattva's journey became an inspiration, teaching others the value of patience, clarity, and inner strength. People spoke of the demon wilderness and the illusions it held, and they marveled at the Bodhisattva's ability to see through them. His wisdom became a guiding light for many, encouraging them to think deeply before making decisions and to trust their own insights above the words of strangers. The Bodhisattva knew that his journey had not only been about reaching a destination, it had been about understanding the nature of illusion and the importance of discernment. He had seen firsthand how easily people could be deceived when they longed for ease and comfort, and he knew that true strength lay in resisting the temptation to take the easy path. Instead, he chose the path of mindfulness and foresight, and that choice had made all the difference. Sometimes, the greatest strength lies in knowing when to hold on and when to let go. The young merchant sought ease and speed, but he lost everything to a mirage. The Bodhisattva, in his wisdom, understood that true progress comes not from haste, but from clarity and patience. In the end, the path we choose depends not on what others promise, but on the truths we hold within. Remember this: trust your own wisdom, especially when the world offers you illusions that seem too good to be true. It is better to carry the burden of caution than to find yourself empty-handed in the face of danger. The choices we make in times of uncertainty define our journey. In the midst of illusions and false promises, let your inner wisdom be your guide, for it is this wisdom that will see you through even the most treacherous paths. Just as the Bodhisattva crossed the demon wilderness with unwavering resolve, you too can navigate the challenges of life, holding fast to what you know to be true and emerging on the other side, wiser and stronger for the journey.